Scissors. I've heard that. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's 12. 19. The first one was 12. Yeah. 19. 26. 26.
Sorry, my writing's not very clear. Yeah, Tuesday. Yeah, they're going to go to a repositioning.
Wonderful itinerary. And Wilgers are doing
British
British
Isles. Is that
Isles.
what I heard? Yeah.
Yeah, my cousin did that one.
Oh, okay. Is that fun?
Yeah, they did that Blarney Stone thing where you have to go upside down. But they're younger.
Yeah, really. I'll never do that one.
Blarney Stone upside down. I think I must.
Yeah, didn't go kiss the Blarney Stone.
You're on record because I got the tapes are rolling. I'm gonna start. I won't make you sing today because I couldn't get
Oh
my
yeah,
room
we're
anyway.
kind of late, aren't we?
Yeah.
How about that?
We're gonna finish chapter 7 or 8, chapter 8, chapter 8, and then we're gonna start into the outline. Okay, so NIV, as you remember, if you didn't, it's been a little while. We're still in the treasure. We're in the treasure with Jesus, and Jesus is talking because if you remember in chapter 7, he made the declaration of that he was the Messiah, and that was a huge deal at Rosh Hashanah. In fact, we're in Rosh Hashanah right now, and at the last day of Rosh Hashanah, he declared himself to be the Messiah. Right there in John, he did it. No one else had ever done that before. And then we get we have the Gnostic ad, which I'm going to ignore when we go through the outline so you can see how it fits. And then we have Jesus in the treasury. He had obviously walked from the center part of where everything was happening in the temple into the treasury. And I showed you pictures, the maps of where that was. So the treasury is off to the side, but it's inside the woman's court and where all the Gentiles and about everybody else could be too. So they're talking to him, and Jesus has basically attacked him with his logical arguments. And I'll go over the outline of those when we get to it, but we've gotten to this point, and they ask his question. He makes a statement. Let me come up just a little bit and show you the last statement that Jesus makes. That might help remind us, because this is a very complex logos telos, logical argument to unstated telos. According to the Judeans, said to him, now we have known that you hold an evil spirit. Abraham and the foretellers died off, and you make a logical argument. In case anyone guards my logical argument, he shall not taste of death into the age. And then they ask the question, are you greater than our father Abraham? He died, and so did the prophets. Who do you think you are? And of course, there's always more in the Greek. Here's the Greek. Here's the King James. Art thou greater than our father Abraham, which is dead, and the prophets are dead? Who makest thou thyself? And then here's the literal from the Greek. Me, not only sai you great are of the patros, of the father of us, Abraham, hostis, died off, and the prophetai, the foretellers died off, whom Satan of yourself you make or do. And what's really interesting about this, I mentioned this before, the question forms in Greek. Greek does not have a question form like English or German or other languages. What Greek uses is the question word, the interrogatory word. And the interrogatory word here is hostis. Hostis is, what, which, whom, whatever. In this case, it's whosoever. This is a similar type word that's used when a question is asked. And so Greek questions are always implied. And here's the translation. You are not of the great father of us, Abraham. Whosoever died off, and the foretellers died off, whom of yourself do you make? Now, I think this is really interesting because the King James gets closer to it. The NIV is a little more modern, so they take away the thing. Whom of yourself do you make? This is an extreme irony. because we know that Jesus has declared, he declared himself before, he's going to do it again, that he is God. So by declaring himself God, he's obviously greater than Abraham. Bingo, bango, bongo. It's like, an obvious unstated telos, right, in this statement. There's more to this in Sirach, because there's an apocryphal allusion to this that comes right out of Sirach. It's almost a quote. I won't go through the whole thing, but let's start with this. It's a hymn of honor to our ancestors from the apocryphal work of Sirach. Let us now praise famous men and our fathers and their generations. The Lord apportioned to them great glory, his majesty from the beginning. There were those who ruled in their kingdoms and were men renowned for their power, giving counsel by their understanding and proclaiming prophecies. Aha, prophets, right? And so we go down and we see in this Enoch, Noah, Abraham. And here's 19. Abraham was the great father of a multitude of nations, and no one has been found like him in glory. This is where that statement comes from when they're, we know, right? Abraham is the great father of the people of Israel, right? But this is where that statement directly comes from that they make in regard to Jesus. You think you're greater than our father Abraham? Aha, yes he is, because he's God, right? And there's more than there. So, in NIV, Jesus replied, if I glory myself, my glory means nothing. My Father, whom you claim as your God, is the one who glorifies me. Here's the Greek. It's all Greek to us, right? No, I've got it down here for us. Here's King James. Jesus answered, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father that honoreth me, of whom ye say that he is your God. So I've got the literal for you. Here's the Greek in the literal. He concluded for himself, Jesus, in case that there's that identity form, which we rarely see anywhere except really in John and almost no other works in Greek. Evoke good opinion. This is our doxa, right? Doxa is the Roman word. The Romans, the Latin. In the Roman world, doxa is a huge thing. What does it mean? We usually translate it as glory. It means evoke good opinion, inherent intrinsic worth, and I put in parentheses glory, of myself. He, the doxa, that which evokes good opinion, of me, no one, none, nothing is, estin, is, and I think I repeated this, I need to fix it. The pater, the father of me, the doxazon. So what you have doxa, you have the word used as a noun and a verb. Me, of whom you make a logical argument, that because a God of us he is. This is really messed up a little bit in our translation that we get from NIV and the King James, but let's see what it says. Jesus concluded for himself, so he thought about it. In case I evoke good opinion, makes a lot of sense, of myself, that which evokes good opinion, of me is nothing. It is my Father. My Father evoking good opinion, me, of whom you make a logical argument, because our God, he is. You notice the NIV and the King James kind of accentuate he is your God. But it actually says in the Greek, our God, he is, which is beautiful. The point here, we know that Jesus has already declared himself to be God. He's used the I am form multiple times, which, is an obvious, right, trace back to the Hebrew. But, he's made these ironies over and over again, and he stated specifically that he is God in almost the strongest terms possible, especially in Greek. And then he makes this statement. Jesus concluded himself, I evoke good opinion. If I evoke good opinion of myself, that which evokes good opinion of me is nothing. Why? Because he's God. It is my God evoking good opinion of me, of whom you make a logical argument, because our God, he is. In other words, what is he saying? He says that because of your argument about me, your reasoning about me, therefore, what are you doing? You're giving good opinion to God and to me. You know, it's just, this is such a complex and beautiful argument. I'm going to try to make an outline for you when we get completed with 8, and we'll go over the outline and try to see how the arguments progress and fit, because it's really difficult to just pick them out. It's such a good, complex strength in this argument. In the NIV, it says, though you do not know him, I know him. That is God. If I say I did not, I would be a liar like you. Okay. But I do know him and obey his word. And as you remember, this goes back to the statements he made about Satan. It was, if you remember, okay, I'm not going to go back over all the details, but if you remember, the word used was diablo, right? Diabola. A parabola, a hyperbola, a diabola. A diabola is literally in Greek a logical argument without any telos, with no telos. And so it is used in a figurative way. We try to use it in a figurative way as diabola, as a devil, but in reality, it is a specific term or meaning in Greek. Sometimes they translate the accuser. Usually, if they really mean that, they mean Satan, or they use the word demon, specifically from the Greek. But in this case, remember, he called them the lies, the father of lies. Why? Because a logical argument without any, a logical reasoning, an argument without any conclusion or telos is obviously meaningless. So therefore, a meaningless construct to the Greeks. Yet I have not known him, but I know him, and I should say I know him not. I should be a liar to you, but I know him and keep the same. Okay, the Greek is actually clearer than both the NIV and the King James. And know or not, you have known of him. There's that identity form. I stare at of him, and in case that I say that are because I don't stare at him, I will be similarly to you. I'll be like you, a liar. Other things, contrariwise, I stare at him, and the logical argument of him I guard. Okay, I think this is a lot clearer with the translation from the literal. And you have not known him, God, but I stare at him. And in case I say that I do not stare at him, I will be similar to you, a liar. Contrariwise, I stare at him, and I guard his logical argument. Okay, there's a lot in here, and it's a beautiful expression. You have not known him. Okay, that's that gnosis verb. But I stare at him. Oda, the oda verb. I look at him, literally. It's not just that I know him, I physically see God. And in case I said that I do not stare at him, if I said I don't, I'd be a liar. I'd not be telling the truth because I stare at him. Okay, what did he just tell you? This is just another, in this whole treasury statement, in the whole statement on the Rosh Hashanah, after Jesus confesses that he is the Messiah, he claims to be the Messiah, he goes to this whole point, one point after another, telling the hearers in Greek over and over and over again that he is God, he is God, he is God, in a different way, a different form, a different way of arguing. In this form of arguing, he is making the argument that what? I'm God because I'm actually looking at him. And what does it say in the Old Testament? If you look at God, you'll die, right? Back to the point that in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew, it literally says that when God passed by, Moses looked at his backside. Because if he looked at God, he would die, right? So this implies that if he's actually looking at God, that he's got to be God. mean, this, it just, the irrationality of a lot of our professors and professorettes, they don't seem to understand basic Greek, right? Or even understand logical reasoning. They say, for example, the brown guy, right? That, oh, the church never even imagined that Jesus was really God. He's saying, my goodness, he's saying it over and over again. That he's not only God, he's looking at God. He even makes a statement in Hebrew, ego eimi. I am. And everybody gets excited. He's going to say it again. He's going to give us it again because we're getting right to the end of this chapter. And of course, in Greek, there's no conclusion, right? But you know what the Greeks like to do? Have you noticed it? Well, not so much a cliffhanger as one of those things where you get to the point in the writing and the author kind of punches you, right? You kind of get that, huh! Well, watch what this is because it's beautiful in the end of the treasury. Okay. Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day, and he saw it and was glad. You can already see there's something in this. And just by looking at the translation itself, we'll see even better. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Abraham, the father of you, leapt much for joy, exulted greatly. I'm going to go over this word in a second. In order that he should look at the period, my period, and he stared at, and he rejoiced, greeting graciousness. Ishara. Okay. What does this word look like to you? Charis, right? Charis, we usually translate that as grace. And in Greek, grace means a greeting. It's like chario. Chario. Chario is a specific greeting in greeting, like ciao. Ciao, bella, in Italian. Ciao. You say ciao when you greet. You say ciao when you go. And same thing about charis. Icharia, he was glad. He rejoiced, was glad. Literally coming from greeting graciousness. In other words, this is a grace form of the word grace. Abraham, your father, leapt much for joy, exulted greatly, in order that he should look at my period, my day, and he stared at and he rejoiced or was glad. I left that in because I want you to see that that is the same word as grace. It's a slightly different, it's a cognate form, we call it in the Greek. It's a slightly different form, but it's the same. But what does this statement imply? Abraham is alive. Because why? He says, okay, how can he leap for joy? How can he look at my day and stared at and rejoiced was God? Literally looked at, stared at, right? How can he do that if he's not alive? Right? Now, okay, remember he was talking to the Pharisees and to the Judeans. He's in the temple treasury. Who's he talking to? Pharisees, Sadducees. Who are the Sadducees? The priests. The priests are the Sadducees. So do the Sadducees believe in life after death?
No, that's what you're saying.
Now, really, do the Pharisees really believe in life after death? Ish. They believe in a physical resurrection, right? They believe in a physical resurrection. What Jesus has been talking about, remember from Nicodemus from the 3rd chapter? Jesus is talking about not just a physical resurrection, but also about a spiritual resurrection. Very different view from the Sadducees and the Pharisees. So in front of him are sitting the regular people in the treasury, right? Regular people, the people that came to the sacrifices for the Rosh Hashanah, for the everything's going on. And also standing with him are the Pharisees, probably in their own little group, and the Sadducees in their group. And when he says this, what do you think the Sadducees do? Right? And what do you think the Pharisees do? Well, the Pharisees believe in a physical resurrection, but yet there is the grave of Abraham. It hasn't happened, right? The physical resurrection hasn't happened according to the Pharisees. People are dead in their, they wouldn't say dead in their sin, they're dead, right? So when Jesus says this, this is probably a crowd exciter like you wouldn't believe. You know, our authors tell us what happened. They don't tell us everything that happened. We want to know everything that happened. We don't want to know, and the crowd cheered, or the crowd jeered, or the crowd was like, ugh. They were doing all this, right? The common people are cheering because it says before that what did they do? They understood Jesus' logos. They understood his argument. The Pharisees are like, he's kind of supporting our position here, but you know, what do we do about this, right? And the Sadducees are going, no, and blasphemy. This not only implies Abraham's alive, but it also implies that Jesus knows Abraham. Again, you can take from it what you want. Remember the Nicene Creed, the Anastasian Creed, the Apostolic Creed? Are they three? No, they're one. They're C.S. Lewis's four-dimensional God in three dimensions, so they have three persons. I love C.S. Lewis's point. Anyway, they, of course, say, you are not 50 years old, they said to him, and you have seen Abraham. They got it. They understand. Do you see this? Did Jesus say anywhere that he saw Abraham? Unstated tell us. They know that he implied that he is seen. Right? He is seen and does what? He's a bowling buddy with Abraham. He's his bud. He's his friend. They're close to each other. They get it. You're not 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham. That's 2,000 years that have passed, by the way, approximately. All right. There's the Greek. They said, then said the Jews to him, thou art not 50 years old, and thou hast seen Abraham. They said, certainly. Okay, I love the Greek. You know, always throwing in there. Certainly, according, they said, the Judeans, forward to him, 50 years, 5 10. Not yet you hold, and Abram you have stared at. Accordingly, Judeans, blind to Judea, said forward to him, you hold not yet 50 years, and Abraham you have stared at. Do you see the argument here? Okay. Jesus said that he stared at, who did he say he stared at first? God. I stared at God. And then he claimed to have stared at Abraham. Now, there's not a huge swap between staring. You notice the crowd doesn't want to talk about how he said that he stared at God. Because if they do that, what are they going to have to say? Who are you? Right? And they already asked that question before. You know, he's answering them. They know he's answering them. So they pick up on the Abraham thing. Okay. So, you know, you stared at Abraham. You've seen him physically. That's what it's saying in the Greek. Truly, truly, I say unto you, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am. Okay. We know what this is, right? This is that thing. You don't see ego eimi very much in any of the Gospels except John. You don't see ego eimi anywhere in almost every ancient document in Greek. It is unused. You don't see Hebrews saying ego eimi because they're saying the name of God. So, Jesus said it very early. Verily I said to you, before Abraham I was, I am. He said to them, Jesus, firmly, amen. I make a logical argument to you. Prior to Abram was caused to be ego eimi. You said to them, firmly, I make a logical argument to you. Prior to Abraham was caused to be, I am. This is obviously an unstated telos. All the Hebrew speakers, Aramaic speakers, there's no Hebrew speakers, the Hebrew readers, the Aramaic speakers that see him say ego eimi, they just did what? Hands on the ears. Talk to the hand, the ears ain't listening, right? Because you just said the name of God. It's implied because it's in Greek, right? Because if he said that in Aramaic, actually, Yahweh, they'd probably mob him. Well, they're going to try to do it anyway. Yeah, right? I am. Since it tells declaration of Jesus that he's God, in Greek, it's a direct statement of divinity, or at least of living literally more than 2,000 years. I told you before, the reason that the Greeks don't use most ancient societies, we are not an ancient society. We are a modern society. The Romans, you'll see it in a lot of Roman literature. I'll repeat this as I said before. In Roman literature, you'll see the identity form. I am, is, were, etc., etc. You do not see this in ancient literature. Why? Most ancient cultures don't think the I am forms are necessary. For example, I'm saying before you, if I were to say, I am a man, you'd go, huh? You know, in our society, that's not an irrational statement. but in the real world of most cultures, because I dress like a man, I look like a man, I have a voice like a man, I have a stature of a man, there's no reason for me to say that. It's an unnecessary identity, right? There are other things that, you know, if I were dressed like a farmer in the ancient world, and I said, I'm a farmer, you go like, duh, right? Or if I'm dressed like Peter and his boys, I'm a fisherman. Huh? Huh? Right? If you saw a fisherman on the street, what would you ask him?
Catch any fish today?
Yeah, or will you sell me some fish, right? Give me some fish. People in ancient societies did not need to identify themselves using I am forms. So when they use I am forms, and by the way, this is not unusual in other tongues or other cultures. In the Western world, we see it used more often, but if you go to other societies and cultures, you'll find that I am and the is forms are relatively rarer than English, especially the Western civilization. Western civilization, you know why we've come where we are, right? Because, for example, you know, I'm a test pilot. You would never know that unless I'm wearing my, you know, if I came in here and I'm wearing my helmet and my zoot suit, you know, my flying suit, you'd say, hey, are you a pilot? Duh, right? Well, maybe I'm just cosplaying. You see what I'm saying? But yet, you know, in other cultures, when people only had one piece of clothing in the ancient world, right? There's no need. Plus, in Hebrew, what does it mean when you say Yahweh, I am? You just broken the second commandment. Second commandment depends on which commandment you get, which one you got in which of the Torah, right? But one of them says, thou shalt, in Greek or in Hebrew, it says, thou shalt not say the name of God. We usually translate that, thou shalt not blaspheme, thou shalt not say the name of God unnecessarily, whatever. But remember, in this time period, according to Josephus, what did the high priest do when he said the name of God? Let's see who comes in the name of Yahweh. He whispered it. They never said it out loud. It's back to the point that today, if you go ask the rabbi, oh, that was great. I went to the Shabbat Libowitz. They're doing the Rosh Hashanah, and the kids were out, and everyone was out, and they're doing the whole thing. It's really cool. I wanted to go in and talk to him, but I didn't. Anyway, but the rabbi there would tell you, you know, do they even know how to pronounce the name of God today? The answer is no, because Aramaic at the time was the language. You know, the real language of the people was Greek, but the people knew Aramaic. Hebrew was a dead language at the time. It was spoken. Today, Hebrew is a live language. It's been revived by the nation of Israel. But people did not speak Hebrew. They read Hebrew. They could read it. The problem was when they got to the consonants for Jehovah, for God, I am, what did they do? They did not speak the vowels. The vowels are Adonai. So they left out the vowels. Well, guess what? To this day, nobody knows what the sounds are supposed to be like. Because, like I said, Hebrew is a dead language. Aramaic was a live language. As a matter of fact, the vowel pointlets that were added to the language came in about 600 AD. It came from Arabic and Aramaic. They used the Arabic pointlets in Aramaic to the Masoretic Jews did that to regain the vowel texts. So to this day, no one knows the correct pronunciation of I am, of Jehovah. And Orthodox Jews, what did they do? What did they do? They write, matter of fact, you see all the time. In a lot of Old Testament or New Testament documents, you see this too. When they write the name of God, in some texts of the New Testament, when they write Christ, that's char, rho, blank, oop, sigma, tau. They put a blank. Isn't that funny?
Saw that guy's bill one time. The G-hyphen-D deal, Jewish guy.
Yeah.
In the name of G-hyphen-D, amen. This is my last one test. He was a client.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
I mean, within the last 10 years.
If you go, that's cool. If you look in Orthodox texts, like go to an Orthodox site, one of the ways you can tell Orthodox site is they will do this for the name of God. They will not spell out the name of God. They'll put a dash. Because remember, Jehovah, I can't write the Hebrew. I'm not a Hebrew guy, I'm a Greek guy, right? But when you write the Hebrew, you leave out, of course, Hebrew. Does Hebrew have vowels? Not until the Masoretes, right? The Masoretic text, about, I said 600, about 800 AD. 800 AD, the Masoretes put the pointlets in. And from that point on, Masoretic text. But can a Masoretic text be read in a synagogue? Never. So it's not legal. Now, they may read them in some non-Orthodox, some liberal synagogues, but not even in a Shabbat. You're not supposed to read a mass, you can teach, but you can't read it in the service. It's illegal. It's illegal. It's not, it's considered illegitimate to read a Masoretic text. You have to read from the scroll. Anyway, that gets really complicated, cool stuff. But anyway, that I am form, ego eimi, is a specific form that implies to the Aramaic Hebrew, to the Hebrew people, the Judeans, and it said it was to the Judeans right before, that expresses to them that Jesus did what? He just said, I'm God. To the Hebrews, or to the Greeks, which are all Greeks, right? They're all Greek speakers. They're Hebrew people that speak Greek. To all the Greek speakers, this makes an absolute statement that what? When was Jesus? Not just now. I don't know Abraham just now. When do I know Abraham?
From eternity.
From the past to now to everything. This is because in Greek, like I said, when you make this statement, this is an absolute statement of identity. We call this an identity verb in English. If you don't remember, go back and ask your English teachers. This is identity form. So it is a very powerful, this is an incredibly powerful statement. And because of this, at this, they picked up stones to stone him, but Jesus hid himself slipping away from the temple grounds. This in itself should tell you, the reaction of the crowd should express to you the entire point of this. And as I said, this is a punch. This is a Greek punch. They took up stones to cast at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple, going through the midst of them, and so passed by. This is, the reason I like to show you the King James is because it's a better literal translation than usually the NIV. They raised up, certainly or accordingly, they raised up lithos, stones, in order that they might balo, right? Parabalo, diabalo, hyperbalo, all the balos, they might throw honor against him, Jesus, but he hid, concealed, and he came or went from out or among of the sacred place, the temple, pereo, dialephon, he coming or going through, through the middle, in the midst of them. and he near led. Para, again, near led. You know, this is one of the para words. And we see this word reused over and over again, near led. There's a lot to this that is not expressed. You know, it says passed by, went out, whatever. But he near led in this manner. According, they raised up stones in order they might throw on or against him. But Jesus hid, and he went from out of the sacred place. He going through in the midst of them, and he led near in this manner. And the reason I want you to see this led near, what did Jesus do when he took his disciples with him? He led near. Why? Because his disciples were with him. When he was with the people, he led near. What did the people do? They went with him. In Greek, para, this word that's translated passed by, near led, para, he led near. This comes from igen, which means led, and para, which is near. Okay, do you see the implication here? This always means that you are what? With other people. It's not, he's not going by himself. Okay? Now, who went with him? Oh, we don't know. Who was with him? Well, we don't really know. The Greek doesn't care. The Greek doesn't tell you. What is the implication? Who went with him?
People that wanted to protect him, people that believed him.
I would say the people that believed it, that understood the logos to tell us. See, what's really cool about the Greek that we kind of miss in our translations is the Greek hearer, because remember this is read out loud to them usually, the Greek hearer is what? Understands this is near led. So that what do they think? They think, okay, it isn't Jesus hiding. What is it? It's Jesus concealed with what? A whole bunch of people going with him. So it could be, you know, there's lots of ways to read this. You know, it could be like Jesus in the midst of a crowd that are protecting him. It could, you know, he's hiding because he's in the crowd. Could be. It could be Jesus miraculously, a sign, right? All these people with him are just like, right? We're going. Yeah, yeah.
Just thinking about the context, he says something that offended the crowd. They go looking for rocks. He says, okay, we got to get out of here. They look out, make haste to get out of there. So kind of taking advantage of the situation, when they start going looking for rocks, he says, oh, this isn't going to end well. We're going to get out of here.
And that too, right?
Yeah.
But the impression is it's not him slinking out. See, the kind of impression we get from our translation is he's slinking. You know? Yes, sir.
Well, was it when he was in Nazareth and they lead him to the top of the hill to throw him off and he just kind of passes through the crowd? It's the same type of thing.
Yeah.
I guess I think of it more miraculous than just.
I think, you know, I don't think it's Jesus hiding, it's Jesus slinking. When you make the statement, ego in me, baby. Okay, the next thing you're doing is you're not slinking, right? You are progressing, right? You're not passing through the midst. You are near leading those who agreed with you, right? So they can pick up all the rocks they want, but, you know, are they going to toss them? And who's really picking up the rocks, right? It's like, I love it with Paul, right? Paul in Athens, he's talking to the Greeks, right? And you got some who believe him, some who don't believe him, and some say, hey, we want to hear you later, right? In this case, we got the Pharisees, the Sadducees, we got the Judeans, whatever that means, you know, the group of people, just groups. And then we got those who agree with his argument that, you know, are, yeah, I'm with you, right? And then he goes, ego in me. Some of those pick up rocks, probably the Sadducees, the priests, and maybe the Pharisees, right? They're picking up, hey, that's a good idea, let's pick up some rocks, right? Let's lithiate them, whatever. Throw rocks at him, litherate, whatever in Greek. Let's throw some rocks at him, right? And yet there's a large group, and we don't know how large, he doesn't tell us. that obviously agreed or knew his argument, and now he's walking out. And I don't think this is slinking, sneaking. Remember, it's the treasury. I showed you the pictures of where the treasury is, right? I mean, if there's a huge crowd, is she sneaking out of there? No, you got to go through the doors, right? You just can't be sneaking. And they got the guards and the temple guys and whatever. Anyway, I think this is a beautiful, like I said, this is the punch. This is the punch. This is the Greek loves to do this. He didn't tell you the conclusion, right? And of course, we want to know more. And actually, the Greek tells us a lot more than our translations tend to do, because we've got, we really don't have a term in English that equates to near lead. We just don't really have terms that fit, that our translators can pull down and say, I'm going to use this because it'll really make it understand, because it's a different culture, it's a different way of thinking, it's a different whole kind of thing. Anyway, I've got, of course, when I finish my text, I've got the whole translation of the text, but I also have, I've started the outline to 8. I'm going to skip the Gnostic ad in the beginning, but I wanted to remind you, and I got a little time to remind you, because what we'll do next week is I'll give you a really short synopsis, maybe the last part of the John 7 outline. I'll skip the Gnostic ad, and then we'll go into the John from 8:12 to show the outline of treasury, because the Gnostic ad, I think, is a terrible thing. We don't know what book it's from. They throw it into John at the wrong point. Why do they throw it into John at the wrong point? Because Jesus just declared himself to be Messiah in the temple. And the next section, he is talking in the treasury. So he didn't move from the temple. He just declared himself to be the Messiah. And then we want to hear what he said in the treasury to the people about being the Messiah, right? And what did the Gnostic, what do we get in the Gnostic ad? A speed bump, totally destroying the arguments between the two. It was a late ad. We don't know where it came from. It doesn't reflect it. I showed you that how the Greek is not the Greek of John and doesn't fit. And by the way, if you look in every Bible that you own, it's going to say this is added text. It was a late ad from a late version. It's not in the majority text. The majority text adds it, but it throws in, it says, we don't know where this should be. In Matthew, I think Luke, Matthew, John, take a pick. So anyway, I want to skip the Gnostic ad so that we can see the whole argument in place, because the whole argument starts with 7. It says 7 plus 1 day, Rosh Hashanah. The siblings go to Jesus, go to Judah. They say, Jesus is said. His siblings said, go to Judah, go to Jerusalem, right, for Rosh Hashanah, because you have to, right? Pilgrim festival. Have to go there. It's required. You have to go there because that's what is required by the law. And Jesus tells them what? The rabbi of Capernaum says, I ain't going. But guess what? He really did. So it's really interesting because it's a beautiful logos, that's unstated. Tell us in that. Jesus says, now time. They tell us it's yours all the time. Doesn't matter when. Anyway, you were created. The created can't hate you, but it hates me, and I bear witness as 12 are bad. So Jesus went up, and everyone was looking, but no one was speaking openly about Jesus because of Judeans. Because John tells us that, in fact, not just John, but the siblings of Jesus tell us that the Judeans wanted to do what with Jesus? Kill him. Mostly the Pharisees wanted to kill him. So they're looking for him to kill him, and in the middle of the festival, Jesus in the temple, it says teaching, but remember, you don't teach until, what do you do in the temple? You sacrifice. That's the point. But Jesus is in the temple, and he's teaching. And they ask, how does he know the writings? And I told you, it's not the Torah, because every Jewish kid knows the Torah. Every boy knows the Torah. Their bar mitzvah proves that they know the Torah. He knew it all. He knew the Talmud, the Tanakh, the Torah. He knew the Mishnah. He knew the comments of the Mishnah. He knew everything. So they want to know, how does he know the writings? Because he may be the rabbi of Capernaum, but the Rabbi Capernaum's he's from Galilee. He doesn't know nothing, right? Anyway, he says, my instruction is not myself, contrariwise from God. Do God's will, my instruction from God and me. Words from self-seeking doxa. Remember we had the doxa statement that we just looked at? Self-seeking doxa, seeking doxa of another is the not false. Torah, not one keeps the Torah. So why do you plot to kill me? This is the telos setup. The throne concluded. You have a demon or God in you that seeks to kill you. And he says, Jesus said, one toil I did, one wonder I did, and you all wondered. One Simeon, one sign I did, and you all wondered. Then he goes into the thing about circumcision. Circumcision was not from Moses. Circumcision was prior to Moses, by the way. It was in Abraham's day that God gave it to them. But yet you circumcise on the Sabbath, Sabbat. Circumcision on the Sabbat, Torah is not unbound. But I make you healthy. I make a man healthy. This is because he had made a man healthy. He made a man, he'd heal a person on Shabbat. And by the way, this goes all the way back to, you remember the setting for this? Way back when? Because Jesus was going from the mikvah. Jesus had done the mikvah so he could eat teruma, so he could eat the sacrifice. And who did he see? The paralyzed man at, I'm trying to remember the name of the pool of, was it Shloek? Anyway, it's at the pool, the two pools. There's a filler pool, another pool. I went through the whole thing from the mikvah. And so Jesus sees the guy who's paralyzed, and he says, pick up your mat and walk, right? Pick up your mattress and walk. On the Shabbat. And he tells him, peripedo, walk all around. In the temple area, right? Because it's right in the temple area. And so what does this guy do? He picks up his mat, he walks around, mattress, he walks around in the temple area. And what do the Sadducees and Pharisees do? You're breaking Shabbat because you're walking around, right? That was the miracle he did. This is the setup for the whole thing. And so Jesus is referring back to that specific event. And guess what? Jesus caused it. Jesus did it. Jesus made it happen because what do you want? This is a setup for this. You know, we're already in chapter 8. We're seeing the ramifications of chapter 5. This is the beauty of the Greek and the beauty of the power that, you know, John, of course, this is reflecting historical conditions, but John is reflecting this to show you who Jesus is, to show you about Jesus. You do not distinguish through sight. That's judge through sight, right? Distinguish is the word that's used in the Greek. Distinguish with the mind. That's really interesting in itself, because Jesus is calling the whole time for us to use a logos, a logical argument, right, to understand. Is he not whom they seek to kill? That's the telos. Okay, remember the crowd said, you have a demon because you think they're trying to kill you. And then at this point in the argument, they say, is he not whom they seek to kill? What did they just do? They answered the question. You know, this is that beautiful argument. Speaks, no one contradicts. When did the rulers know he was Christ? That is a telos setup. That's a telos from the telos setup. He speaks, no one contradicts. When did the rulers know he was Christ? The second argument we see from this place, we see that you're in this place, and I'm just paraphrasing a lot of the translations here. Second argument, we see from what place that you come, right? Where does he come from? He's the rabbi of Capernaum. He came from Galilee. We know where you came from. We know about your father and your mother. But Christ comes from an unknown place. That's part of their view. Jesus in the temple spoke, you see me and see where I am. Ego imi. For myself, I am not. You sent me, you do not see. Therefore, you do not know where I'm from. He's claiming that he's God. As I told you, there are different arguments for claiming that he's God. I stare at him. Wait. This is the same argument that he's using at the end of 8. Because it's not supposed to be separated. this whole argument of structure, this whole structure in this section is supposed to be together. That Rosh Hashanah and the temple treasury part. I share him because I am from him. Ego imi. Likewise, he set me apart. All right. I told you, in the very end of this, we get a direct claim. Ego imi. I am. I am because I see Abraham. I am because I know Abraham. I am because I bowl with Abraham in the bowling league, right? And then this part, he's saying, I stare at him because I am from him. You see, okay, I know. We, in our English thinking, we need to study more Greek and more classical reasoning, right? But this is a means of doing classical reasoning to help us to, it's a classical form of reasoning that is making a direct analogy, a direct reasoning statement, right? He'll get to the point where he says, okay, I knew Abraham, which implies that I'm God. And then he makes a statement, I am. In this one, I am from God, right? From him. Likewise, he set me apart. They sought to capture him, but no one did, not at this time. What's interesting about this is this happened just before the treasury, and there doesn't seem to be any separation. So when he was in the middle of the temple, remember I showed you the picture of the temple? So he's in the middle of the temple, and the high priest does the 118th Psalm at the end of Rosh Hashanah, and he goes, blessed is he who comes in the name of Yahweh. And what's supposed to happen? The Messiah, according to Jewish text and Jewish Mishnah and the Jewish thought, the Messiah is supposed to stand up and proclaim, I am the Messiah. What did Jesus do? He stood up and said, I have living water that I will give to you, right? He just proclaimed that he's Messiah. And at the end of this, after having this saying, okay, then they sought to capture him. The throng, many were convinced by the signs. The Pharisees sent under oarsmen to capture him. In other words, those who worked under them. Jesus said, I am. I will be with you a short time of the gods, the chronos, and I lead forward to God. You will not find me, and wherever I am, you are not able to come. And then the Judeans asked, where is he going? Does this mean he's going to the dispersion? Is he going to the diaspora? Is he going, away to the other Jews, the Jews in Greece that they considered to be, not following the Jewish ways? Because why are they not following the Jewish ways? Remember, there's 36 things that can get you not. They couldn't go to the pilgrim festivals. Exactly. And could they hear the trumpet? What's that thing called? The shofar. Could they hear the shofar? No. They have to. It's required. If you look at I've got my Jewish handbook at home, right? My Jewish handbook. It's this thing. The Jewish handbook, it says the 36 things that mean you are immediately condemned. There is no sacrifice, there's no forgiveness at all for them, and there's no forgiveness for intentional sin, according to Deuteronomy, right? 36. If you don't do any of those, if you have a spot of leaven during Passover, you're done. That's it. That's it. You're condemned. There's no sacrifice. Anyway, so are you going to the dispersion to teach the Greeks, but it's really the Jews, and they imply that if the Jews are outside of Jerusalem or outside of Judea, they imply that if you're outside of Judea, you're what? You're a Gentile. Yeah. Which, okay, that's a huge fight. Anytime the Galileans would be upset, the Babylonians would be upset, the Alexandrian Jews would be upset, and so would the diasporan Jews. They would be really upset, but right? Because eventually Paul will go to them, and that's one of his arguments. The declaration of the Messiah at Rosh Hashanah, Jesus in the temple, one thirst, come forward to me and abide. Condensed writings, torrents from the cavity, and we had this, it was all from these different things, said through pneuma, and yet pneuma was free. Jesus was not yet sacrificed. It specifically says pneuma, that is the Hagios Pneuma, the Holy Spirit was not yet freed. People were split. He's the true foreteller. Others, he's the Christ. Others, the Christ comes not out of among of Galilee, the Galileo. Telos, not from Galilee, but from Bethlehem. That was the joke, right? Everybody knew that. That's why John was writing this gospel, was to give them more information, right? So that everybody who read this knew that he wasn't from Galilee. How they know that? They read it. They heard it from Matthew and Luke, right? They knew this. They wanted more information. But this is a big deal. The telos was he wasn't from Galilee. He's from Bethlehem, and therefore he didn't come out from Galilee. He fulfilled the stuff. The people knew this. The underoarsman, no man uttered words like this man. Telos, he's not a man. You see that? This is back in 7. The underoarsman said, no man uttered words like this man. Telos is the unstated telos. He's not a man. Not any Pharisee convinced to him. Not any Pharisees convinced him. That's a lie. Because there's an unstated telos, right? Who was convinced? We think Nicodemus was convinced. The argument was the Torah not distinguished if he knows not what he has done. This was what Nicodemus said. And the answer was the foreteller stands not up in the marketplace in Galilee, not in Galilee. In other words, even Nicodemus knew this, but this was the answer they gave. And then the final point of 7, the throng don't know the Torah. They utter a curse when they speak of the Torah. In other words, that was the last point they made. And then we get Jesus in the treasury. And that's what I'm going to do. What we'll do next week is we'll look at the outline before we go to 9 of this Greek dialogue of Jesus as Messiah in the temple that continues from the Rosh Hashanah statement that he is the Messiah. And what I want you to see, and I'll try to make it very evident, of how the arguments fit together. We already can see that kind of, right? You see the different stages of the arguments, and then you see at the end of this one that the argument is not really complete. Nicodemus is making his statement, and then we get this whole other dialogue because then Jesus makes this statement. I'm the source of light that was created, etc. And we'll get through that anyway. Thank you, Father, for your word. We pray you look after us this week. In your name we pray.
On November.
Uh-oh.
Oh, thank you.
Hope this recorded.